Hello everyone and welcome back to round 10 of the Magnus Invitational. We are continuing with the match Fabiano Caruana versus Hikaru Nakamura. We've already checked out 2 games, so one game was won by Fabi, one game by Nakamura, and 2 of the games were drawn. So here we are in game 5, the Armageddon round. As I heard, Nakamura won the coin toss and he chose the black pieces. So it's Fabi who gets 5 minutes against Nakamura's 4, and Fabi needs to win the game to win the match. Nakamura is satisfied with a draw to win the match. So without further ado, let's check it out. Fabiano again with d4. We have knight to f6 by Nakamura, c4 e6, and again we go into the queen's gambit decline. Knight f3 d5, knight to c3, and again Hikaru with his bishop to e7. We have bishop to f4, and now Hikaru castles, and e3 now. We have knight b to d7, so this is all very standard. We have a trade in the center, c captures, knight captures, e captures, and now bishop to d3. So trading something, but again keeping the position alive, as Fabiano really needs to win this game to win the match. And c5 by Hikaru, the most often played move here, as it is the strongest. We have castles by Fabi, and c4 now, challenging this bishop to c2, and now b5. So this has all been played before, and Fabi just challenges this structure with b3, attacking c4. And there are a couple of moves that were played in this position. Knight f6 is a known move, g6 is a known move, but the move Nakamura played is a new move in the position, which is a5. So as of move 12, we have a completely new game. We have a trade on c4, Fabi captures, b captures, and now rook to b1, grabbing the b file for his rook, and now bishop to b4. Not allowing this rook any rook lifts in the future, but also preventing rook to e1. So it is a useful square for the bishop. We have h3 by Fabi, and now rook to a6. A nice rook lift by Nakamura, but for the moment it's very hard to shift it over to the king side to help out with the attack due to Fabi's bishop pair. We have queen to e2, developing the queen, connecting rooks, and now knight to f6. And as e5 square is no longer covered by the knight, Fabi immediately takes this opportunity to get his knight to this excellent central outpost. So knight e5 and bishop to e6 now, developing and adding another defender to the d5 pawn. We have f3 now, keeping an eye on e4 and g4, but also in the future you want to push e4, so that's basically preparing e4. Knight back to d7. Hikaru is very happy to trade down as many pieces as possible, and of course Fabi declines. Knight to g4. We have rook to e8, and now rook f to d1. As you are preparing to push e4, you want the d4 pawn to be protected. We have bishop captures on g4 by Fabi, h captures, and now bishop to d6, just challenging, by Hikaru, just wanting to trade more pieces. And here bishop captures on d6. We have rook captures, and Hikaru was able to trade off a lot of pieces here, but now Fabi gets in this very nice rook lift, rook to b7. And now, if possible, he wants to push e4, which will of course put pressure on c4 as well as just the center. If you get e4 and e5 in, your position will be very good. So knight to f8 by Nakamura. He wants to shift the knight over to e6, and now queen to f2. When you push e4, you also want your d4 pawn to be protected twice, as the queen and the rook will be attacking it. And now rook to f6. Now, of course, if you push e4, this pawn captures, and you cannot recapture with the f pawn. So rook d to b1, Fabi just doubles up on the b file, and now queen to d6. And here Hikaru says, my position is very nice, I've prevented you from pushing e4, and I can just, chill like this for as long as I need to. And here, the problem with something like rook to b6, although it looks nice, Nakamura would very gladly just take it here and play 2 rooks against the queen, and it would be very hard for Fabi to do anything here. If anything, it's black who's better. So Fabi finds g5 instead. Says, where are you going with the rook? My bishop slices over here, the pawn slices here, your only square is e6. So this is what Nakamura does, and now e4 by Fabi. So is this breakthrough possible, and what's happening here? So Hikaru doesn't like captures, and instead he goes for queen to a3. But it is quite a weird move to play, because Fabi just pushes e5, and we already mentioned if white gets e4, e5 in, that his position will be good. And now the problem is when e5 was played, you can't even capture on a2 because bishop captures on h7 and you lose the queen here. So a very, very odd decision by Nakamura. So instead he just moves the rook h to e7, now wants to trade here, and just rook to b5 by Fabi declining the trade, going after the d5 pawn. And now a second weird decision by Nakamura. And now a second weird decision by Nakamura, queen to c3. Meadow was just frightened, he probably had a bad dream or something. So after rook 7 to b5, we have queen to c3, and now, as it is a weird move, just rook captures on d5, just leaving that pawn undefended. And here, it's unclear what queen to c3 does. Better than queen to c3 was just defending the pawn here, but Hikaru probably thinks he's going to win back the d4 pawn. With knight to e6. So instead, rook captures on d5, and now comes knight to e6, challenging the d4 pawn now, but it's already defended twice here. But maybe as the bishop is also under attack, you could maybe do some tactics here. However, Fabi finds the very strong bishop to a4. He goes for the rook here, and now rook to f8, getting the rook out of harm's way, and now f4. Of course, you want to play f5, f6, and so on. Now Fabi really does have the initiative. So g6 by Hikaru, freeing up the g7 square for his knight. Then you can maybe go to f5, and well, it's hard to say, as white always has this g4 move. So rook to d6, and now comes knight to g7. We have bishop back to c2. Of course, f5 would be very nice for white, and now knight to e8. We have rook to c6. Now getting the rook out of harm's way, and now rook to d7. So for the moment, preventing f5, as now the d4 pawn is under attack. We have rook to d1, and now knight to c7. So what's happening here? We have bishop to e4. Now if knight to d5, then of course Fabi just trades it and continues pushing. And now rook f to d8, challenging the d4 pawn once again. Now it's attacked 3 times. And here Fabi goes for queen to f3. Just a nice queen trade, but f5 was actually incredibly strong. However, both of them were very low on time. Hikaru even more so. And well, Fabi was also in some, to some extent playing also on Hikaru's time. So here it's very strong because you can never trade here, as your knight will be undefended here, and if you play something else and it's hard to find a move, let's say knight b5, now you just capture here and you just capture everything. Capture, check, and doesn't matter where the king goes, king h7, queen f6, and it's just game over. So f5 would have been very strong, a mating attack if you will. But okay, Fabiano went for queen f3 as he does have a very promising position. Nakamura captured here, and now knight to e6. And now he's attacking both of these pawns, which means he's grabbing back the pawn. But Fabi found the d5, we have knight captures on f4, and now d6, which really limits the mobility of the black rooks. And you will also be able to undermine them later with bishop to g4. So here, knight to d3, closing off the d file for Fabi's rook, but now bishop to g4. Forces the rook to move, rook to a7, and now d7. And now we have a nicely protected pass pawn on d7. We have king to f8, and now rook captures on c4. The knight now has to move. We have knight to b4, and here just e6. Fabi doesn't give Hikaru a moment's rest. We have f captures on e6, and now bishop captures on e6. We have rook to a6 by Hikaru going after the bishop, but now just rook to c8, saying, okay, you capture here, I'm going to capture here with check. So king to e7, this is a must, and bishop to g4 now. So just defending the passed pawn, and Hikaru is really running out of options. He played rook to a8, hoping, of course, Fabi will trade here, but Fabi does no such thing. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the winning move for Fabi while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the best move in the position. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook to e1 check. Now you just push the black king away. It's all the same where the king goes, king f7, and now rook to e8. And it was in this position on move 50 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game. as there is nothing more to be done here. If you don't do anything, you're just going to lose a rook. Any captures will work here. And of course, if you capture, then white just brings a queen into the game and wins. If you want to be super precise, then first you just get the king to a less active square, and then you capture. You bring a queen, captures, and you are up a whole rook, of course, completely winning. So yeah, after rook to e8, Nakamura resigned, and Fabi prevails with the white pieces in Armageddon, which is very strange. Not that he won, but I really thought Nakamura would go for the white pieces. I don't know why. Here he chose black. He was confident that he will hold a draw, but in the end he just blundered a pawn, and Fabi was able to, of course, to nurture that pawn up situation to a full point. So here, Fabi gains 2 points and Nakamura gains 1 as they both reached Armageddon. And before I forget, here are the standings after round 10. So let's just check it out. Sorry, that's a bit large. Let me just make that smaller. Some special effects here. There we go. So yeah, these are the standings cross table from the Chess24 website. As you can see, top 4: Ding Liren, Hikaru Nakamura, Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano, Caruana, and these are only the preliminaries round, so those 4 will go into the knockout stages. But we still have 2 more rounds to go, so anything can still happen. Well, not really anything. Firouzja will not be able to qualify as he has only 3 points, so even if he wins his next 2 matches, before reaching Armageddon, that's only 9 points, and Fabi already has 10, so he will not be joining the top 4. But Maxime, Jan, and Anish Giri are still able to, I think Giri is also able to qualify for the top 4, as if he wins both of his matches, he will have the same as Fabi, that's 10, and since he still has to play Fabi, if he beats Fabi, he will have 10 exact the same as Fabi, and I think that's a very important criteria for tiebreakers, that he may qualify for the knockouts instead of Fabi. But it's gonna be very exciting. So it's gonna be hard for anyone who's not in the top 4 at the moment to qualify, but like I said, 2 more rounds, anything can still happen. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, the entire match. I would like to thank Terence Nolan, Jan Oraske, Steve Vaca, Thomas Connors, and Roland Moller for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Magnus Invitational until it finishes. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.